Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano. Our topic this week is the value of perspective as a leader and the work that needs to be done to gain that perspective. And the person shedding some outstanding light on this topic is Meka White Morris. She's the Executive Vice President and the Chief Business Officer of the Minnesota Twins. Throughout this conversation, we talk about developing a unified culture, how the Twins are an integral part of their entire community, and Meka's philosophy towards empowering people. Also, we will talk about being intentional with one's time. This conversation begins now on Keep the Line Moving. All right, Meka, it's such a pleasure to have you. It's great to see you at the ballpark. The ballpark's in your background. As we're recording, the Twins are in first place. But as you know, the baseball season is long. But how are you feeling about Twins baseball 2023?
I mean, I'm feeling really good. We've had a team that has, not always done everything we'd like them to do on the field, but the fact that we're still in first place and here we are in August is a good thing. And so, if we can just keep these bats warm, keep our pitching solid, I think there's a good shot at the postseason. But you just try to be a little bit patient. It's a long season. We still got, a ways to go, but good things, no doubt.
Awesome. Well said. So, Meka, let's look at this is about you, but also about the Twins and all. But you've been in the NBA, NFL. You and I know a lot of the same people, and you were recommended for this podcast, obviously, from what you've achieved in your career, my goodness, and the human being that you are. So let's look at it first and foremost. How did you get to where you are right now, Meka?
A lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice, a lot of prayer. I mean, for me, it's you when you want something, you gotta do what it takes to get there. And so, just being committed to this industry and always being somebody who wants to learn and try new things and not afraid of being uncomfortable, I think has led to and yielded success and certainly some staying power in this industry. And I'm proud of the road that and the journey that I've taken. And certainly it's not over. So the part that gets me excited is who the heck knows what the next 20 years are going to be like. So I think still the best is yet to come.
And let's look at this. And you said something in there that I want to unpack, which I have learned about you, is that you're constantly framing parts of your journey, parts of others' journey in a way that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing or you're not getting to where you want to go. Talk about that concept of being in situations where maybe not everyone looks like you or not everyone thinks like you. But I really enjoy how you highlight that when you're talking to people and other forums that I've seen you be a part of.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think um, eh, being and stretching yourself to create and think beyond what is requires you to sort of experience and be around people that come at the world differently. But that doesn't mean it's going to completely augment how you think, but it's gonna pressure test it and stretch it beyond the limitations that we each have on ourselves. And so, making sure that you have a circle of people around you that is diverse. And that doesn't mean in race or gender, but that means of thought. And for me, I think, if you're not stretching and a little bit uncomfortable, failing at times, I don't think you're really trying, you're not growing, you're not evolving. And so if everything is going as planned and there's no bits of discomfort and there's no opportunities where that didn't go so well, now I've got to switch and change, I would argue that you're not really moving the needle or advancing the ball in the ways that our industry frankly needs. And so, I look for those spots. I think the obstacle is the way, and leading into that is how we kind of push this industry forward.
And it's not just the industry, right? It's everyone that we're working with. You're in obviously a major position of leadership within the Twins. In fact, we don't want to brush over this. You arrive at the Twins in 2021. 6 months later, you're senior vice president, and 6 months later, you're promoted to executive vice president. That says so much about what the Twins and how you're aligned, right? And values and production and how, the what you all think needs to be important in an executive.
Yeah, I think the Twins are very intentional in how they sort of pursue talent and put together a framework and a roadmap for, what they needed out of me, and then ultimately what that would lead and yield for me for my career development and growth. And as you rise in any industry, frankly, shared ethos with your leadership, ownership, or executive team is critical. And I don't remember a time coming to the Twins that my owner, my CEO, and I weren't sort of seeing the world from a similar perspective. And that means standing up for things that matter to me, that matter to them. That means that it's not always about money, but it's about who we are, what we stand for, and who we align with. And that's as much our partners and who you see us outwardly, but that's also what we do internally. And when those two things align, your chance to sort of continue to grow through an organization is just that much richer. Because I know when I'm making a decision that I'm doing it from a place of of a shared value system that I have with my owner and with my CEO. So there's a level of comfort when you have that for everybody involved, and that allows you to sort of progress and move through the career advancement at a more rapid pace.
So that the owner, Joe Poland, and CEO Dave St. Peter, what was the process from your perspective when you were talking about values and the things that are important to you as an executive? So what was that interview process like to make you a twin?
Yeah, I think one of the best things about when you interview for a job, if you can sort of be lucky enough to find yourself in this position, is when you're not really looking for a job. At the time, I was not, on the hunt, so to speak. And frankly, when the recruiting firm that they had hired to fill this role approached me, I wasn't initially interested in the role. And they called a few times to sort of say, hey, well, we really think you're the right fit. And I said, well, it's baseball, it's Minnesota, I live in Texas, I'm not really sure. And they encouraged me to just have a conversation with Joe Polad and Dave St. Peter. And what I found is that, location and sport aside, like, are we aligned? And what I will say is fundamentally we were aligned. What they believed and saw in me was aligned with what I had always believed and saw in myself, and what they wanted for this organization and its overall growth and development was aligned with my core skill set and competencies, but also, what I believe is important. And when those two things align, the location and the sport, while that's critical, it is not as important as alignment. And you could have the best city with the best team or your dream scenario, but if that alignment doesn't exist, it doesn't matter really where it is and what it is. If what the work that you want to do isn't sort of akin to how the ownership and leadership team thinks. And those things were fundamental to any place that I was going to consider. And it just so happened to be baseball in Minnesota. A sports team is a beacon and a representation of the community it serves. And those two things cannot be disparate. It's yes, we want to win baseball games and we want to sell hot dogs and we want to sell tickets. But do we care about how that affects the community around us and how they feel about what we're doing as an organization? And that part was really critical to me. And not only did they say the right things, they put their money where their mouth is, right? You think a post George Floyd environment. Does the Polad family, lead into racial justice in a way that matters? And the answer is yes, yes. And they doubled down on it many, many times over. And so you can stand up and stand up for an organization that really believes fundamentally in the things that you do.
So when you walk in the building every day, you know you have their backing for because you oversee a lot of departments, Meka. So when you're interacting with people, whether it be the fan base or the people that work for the Twins, you know that diversity, inclusion, and those commitments to the community at large and the culture of the Twins is there. So how
Correct.
much does that drive the fulfillment that you have for being in the Twins offices every day?
It's paramount. It's fundamental, right? It's like you can't say we stand for something, but then on this side, the way you behave, whether it's externally or internally, doesn't align with what you stand for. You can't say you stand for something and then you partner with organizations that are publicly standing up for something that is opposed to what you say you stand for. And I will say that time and time again, the Polad family and Dave St. Peter have stood up and stood for what is right, in my opinion. And that fundamental sort of statement allows you to feel a level of comfort with how you operate and you move through the community and in this organization. So if I go to speak or I say something or I stand for something, I am sure that they're going to back me up on that. And it's not this situation where, I'm saying something over here, but behind closed doors it's something else. We are aligned, and I also think the encouragement of healthy debate, right? We could get in a room and be opposed and debate a topic, find our way to alignment, and when we leave that room, we are unified in how we want to approach a particular topic or particular issue or particular outward community initiative, and that's really important and super healthy in any organization, frankly.
So, okay, so now you have Joe and Dave, right? So you report up to them, but then you have so many people looking at you and you're that person for them. So,
Right.
what is your philosophy in empowering people on your teams within the departments that you oversee? How do you come into the building every day philosophically trying to align everybody and have healthy debate and have productive conversations, uncomfortable conversations at times, but leaving with everybody knowing this is what we stand for. Here's where we're going.
Yeah, you hire people that you trust and that you believe are experts in what they do, and you let them do their job. I don't need people who I need people who are better than me, that have loft beyond mine, that have expertise that I don't have. And the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, because you've allowed people who are really, really skilled and smart to do their job. If I've got to make the decision across every sort of vertical in every space, then I'm not really allowing those people to stretch and grow and do what they do best. So I go and hire really, really talented people and let them do their job. My job is to get obstacles out of their way. My job is to go get resources for them to do more of what they do best. My job is not to tell them how to do their job. It's to get in the soup when we need to debate or talk through different ideas, to make sure that multiple perspectives are in the room, to ensure that when we show up it the right way for everybody. But ultimately, you want to hire really, really good people, and then you want to get out of their way. And for me, that is fundamental to how I lead. You will find me really playing a background. I want my people to shine. I want them to showcase what they do. If I'm in your kitchen, it's probably not a good thing. Um, it's because there's something that's not going well. I want to, stand beside you and help you, and then also really determine where you want to go and how you want to grow, and provide opportunities for you to flex your muscle, sharpen your skill set, and develop in the areas that you need to ultimately get to where you want to be. And really put some teeth in it, a timeline, a strategy. Here's how I see you. Here's how you want to be a CEO? Great. Here's the things that you need to learn along the way. Let me figure out how I help you get there. I think rising tide lifts all boats. I think you need to pull while you climb. And the goal is for you to go beyond me at a path at a rate that was much faster than my own. And to do that, I've got to have you exposed to many, many parts of this business so you understand what it's going to take to ultimately buoy your career forward.
And that takes self awareness and confidence. And if I may, where did you get that? Because not every leader can articulate so clearly that philosophy, which is to empower, to help people grow, to help them get to where they want to go. I want to know where you got that. And obviously it's our life's journeys, but I'm sure it has a lot to do with your upbringing and your father, your Hall of Fame father, your brothers and sisters, but I'll let you say it.
Yeah, I mean, my family, no doubt. I think, I always knew as a kid because, my parents, the way that they taught us was no one can do any of this on their own. It takes a village to be a Hall of Fame basketball player. At the end of the day, there's five people on the court. There's not one. And in this organization, there isn't one person who decides on behalf of all of us. It takes all of us together to get to where we want to be. And once you recognize that, then what you're looking for in people is their unique talent that can add to the pie that creates ultimately what we want to achieve. And so you're willing to sort of amplify the gifts of others for the benefit of everybody.
That's well said. And your father, JoJo White, Boston Celtics, two-time NBA champion, Hall of Famer. So, Meka, when you look at your journey and you're talking about developing people and hiring, what do you look for in an ideal person to represent the Twins to come aboard on some of your teams?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's about integrity. People very, very high integrity, people who can critically think, people who are selfless and understand and have a viewpoint on where their limitations lie. It is really easy to talk about all the things you do well. It takes a special person to talk about the things that you don't, and not a self-deprecating, self-serving way, like a real way, like I'm really not that great at this. And this is an area that I need to develop. And I also know that I need to go hire people who can fill my gaps. And so, but it takes integrity and then it takes humility. The best leaders I know have a high integrity, but also a very high vulnerability because vulnerability is how you create connection. If I come into a room and all I talk about is how great I am, you never really connect with people. People need to understand that we're all human, and no matter how good you are at something, that there's things in your life that you're not good at or that aren't going so well to create the unification and connection we need to build a really strong team. And so I look for high caliber talent that has both integrity and vulnerability, but also like a clarity around who they are, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, and a willingness to go and seek out the support they need to get better. And I think that combination of executive, that if you sort of have multiple people sort of operating at that level within an organization, there's nothing you can't achieve when you put yourself aside and realize that what we're building is not about one individual, it's about the collective and each person being able to bring their skills to the table to ultimately take us to the next level.
So when you were early in your career with the Raiders or the Cavs or doing, other parts of your journey, did you know you had leadership tendencies and abilities? Did you show leadership? Was that not something that you focused on? And I ask because what you just outlined as an ideal employee now today in your purview is a lot to do with humility, integrity, and all of those intangibles. But they also have to have the skill, right? You came
Yeah,
up in sales.
yeah,
So how do you divide looking at an individual? They're really high indexing. They're great salespeople, but maybe they're a little bit they're not communicating necessarily like the way we'd like that
right.
to be, like inclusive and things of that nature. How did you, in your background, then come to this realization to now that you're hiring folks? How did it all come
Yeah,
together
I
for
mean,
you?
I think it's just experience, right? Like, I pay attention. I watch how people move. I remember very early on at my first job, you have aspirations for more, for growth. You're not really sure what that means, but it's really easy for people to say what they don't like, right? In a leader and a boss. But when you watch how people move, how do you inspire people? How do you get people to buy into a shared vision, even if they disagree on the outset? Who were some of the people who were masterful at that? But also, who are some people who are not so good? Why are they not so good? Where are they missing it? Who inspired me and who deflated me as a leader, as a boss? Why? What they said, in some cases, how they said it. Using and how do you pick your spots, timing, sequencing, order. I really paid attention. And because I worked a lot of places, I've got a lot of data points of people that have done it exceptionally well and people who I'm like, oh, not as good, right? And so I think again, when you diversify your background and working for different leaders, working in different organizations, your perspective just grows and you have a real sense for how do you replicate what's really, really good in a bunch of different leaders that I've had the pleasure of either working for or working alongside or being a fly on the wall watching them do what they do. And so when you pull all of those pieces together, what comes out is a well-roundedness and a real understanding of people and of yourself and a real comfort with your shortcomings and your strengths and an ability to articulate those, right? And by the way, Strength comes from your ability to be vulnerable. Strength does not come from, your ability to be strong. It's and to sort of be self-assured and overconfident. Confidence matters, but vulnerability is sitting right next to it. And I think that piece of it is the piece I think so many people miss, because they're trying so hard to sort of showcase and stand up and be confident. And while you don't want to lack confidence, I think the vulnerability side is what brings people close, and it gets people to open up in ways that they didn't know that they could, which ultimately makes the organization a richer place to work, a richer place to be a part of, and ultimately grows the talent in a way that people can buy into.
So, Meka, let's drill down, if I may.
Yeah.
Why? Why do some leaders not understand that vulnerability is strength? And why do basically, if someone was just listening to what you just said, you have done the work. The work meaning like the self realization. How am I coming across? How am I entering a meeting? How was I in that one on one? You'll go home, you'll do your checklist, whether you're writing it down or you're filing it away, as you said, in your mind. Tell me why you think that sticking point is with some folks, and we're not judging here. We're trying to gain some open-mindedness as
Right.
to why perhaps somebody wouldn't understand vulnerability is strength.
Because I think we've been taught to not show, the soft spots, right? Like culturally, to sort of show up and know everything and be strong and not show weakness is sort of how we've been taught. I mean, sports in general is that, right? So to be able to sort of not only one, be self-reflective enough to understand where your soft spots are, but then confident enough to share those, and not see them as weaknesses, but to see them as what makes you strong and uniquely you, isn't something that people are comfortable with. It's like getting and receiving feedback. How often have we received negative feedback, and instead of taking a beat and saying, okay, how do I overcome this? The immediate reaction is to defend. And for me, it's like, but before I defend, it starts with understanding why you are giving me this feedback. What am I projecting and or doing that is showcasing or demonstrating this gap? Is that true? And how do I fix it, fill it, or sort of grow and evolve in that area? And oh, by the way, if you're going to sit me down and give me negative feedback or show areas of vulnerability or weakness in my skill set, my hope is that you're also going to show up with opportunities for me to improve and how you're going to help me grow in that area. And I think that's the sort of concentric circle of how it should flow. But a lot of times people aren't really trying to unpack and or dig into their areas of development and own those in a way that can help them actually grow. And so I think the more that we could sort of showcase that as leaders, the more comfortable those behind us become with showcasing some of that as well.
And what you just said there is so important. And here's where I want to go next. You're a role model. Let's be honest. You're a woman at a job here. You're a leader. You're thought of in the industry as somebody who just simply gets it done in so many ways. How seriously do you take that as being the role model? And do you see yourself in that regard?
I never aspired to be a role model. I think when I first started, I just want to do really good work and make the people in my life proud of me for the work that I was doing. And you get to this level, and undoubtedly there's other things that come with this territory, like being a role model. However, I just want to create a world that is easier than the road that I've walked. I'm trying to create a world where, you know, young people of color, women understand how to navigate this industry in a way that allows them to be authentically who they are. I think for so long I thought you had to show up a certain way and dress a certain way and speak a certain way, and the path was a certain way. I remember when I left sports, the amount of times I heard how hard it is to get back in if you leave. I mean, it's like, why don't we chart a different way? why don't we look at the world from a fresh perspective? Our industry is ripe for disruption in so many ways because we've sort of built it um, under a certain guise, a certain kind of person with a certain background is the ideal candidate for this role or that role. And I think about it differently. I think about, diversity of thought, people from different backgrounds, different industries with different perspectives on how sports and entertainment and how you show up and what the fan experience should be will ultimately help drive the industry forward. And so if that makes me a role model, then so be it. But the goal is always about impact. It's never about glory. I want to have a lasting impact on this industry for young people and young people of color to know that it's possible. There was a time where I never saw somebody who looked like me in a chair like mine. There just didn't exist. And you're like, well, what am I fighting for if there's no opportunity to become or be or see myself beyond where I am today? People can't believe that can achieve something they cannot see. So we have a responsibility and obligation to keep fighting, to keep showing up, to keep sort of breaking ceilings and barriers, because every little girl that's sitting at home wondering if she can be a chief business officer of a baseball team or president of a basketball team or whatever the case may be, we need to keep fighting to get there so she believes it's possible for her. And not just that, but beyond a commissioner of a league. I mean, why not? So, there's still layers of this that we need to go through. But my gosh, how far have we come in what is arguably a pretty short period of time?
I was just going to say it has. It's been a short period of time where there is happening. There are people of color in prominent positions and women doing great things. And Danny Garcia with the XFL and Sandra with the Raiders. I can go on. It's happening, but it needs to be happening quicker. It shouldn't be something we're talking about, right? It should just be something that
Yeah.
is happening naturally.
Yeah, I always say, like, I'll know that we've arrived when I don't have to sit on another DE&I panel, women in sports panel, when there isn't a separate section for women or, diversity and inclusion. Like when there's no longer these conversations, um, when there's no longer firsts, there still is firsts. And some of our sports have been around for decades, and we're still first female head coach, first female president of a NFL team. It's like when there's no longer firsts, and there's no longer this sort of subset that we always have to sort of be a part of to talk about these areas, we'll have really advanced the ball in a meaningful way.
Yes. Okay, to close out here, Meka, I've got a lightning round for you. It's called an
Yeah.
All-Star Moments. Are you ready?
Yes.
6 questions. Here we go. I've enjoyed this conversation very much. Here we go, Meka. 1, how do you deal with adversity?
Um, I when you find that there's adversity, you're on to something. The most revolutionary ideas in this world were not wholeheartedly accepted by the masses. So what I do is I lead in, I take time to reflect. I, do, my meditation, my yoga, prayer time, whatever that may be. But I know, like, when I'm starting to feel resistance, it's because I'm pulling at a thread that matters and I'm on to something that's going to inspire change.
Awesome. 2, how do you give yourself fuel?
I'm intentional about my time. I am my best when I take time off. So that's within a day, that's within a week. This industry can be a grind, in particular baseball. There's a lot of games. We play, almost every day. But I have to eject myself to refuel my battery to show up and be my best self. So intentionality about time is really what refuels my tank.
Good advice for people. 3, what does never give up mean to you?
That's a really good question because I do think there are times where you've done all that you could do in a particular situation or a particular case, and for me, it's picking and choosing when to lead in and when I've done all I could do. But that doesn't mean you're giving up. That means pivoting and continuing down the journey, right? And so, I think it's a really interesting question. I don't, I, if you have a goal or something you want to achieve, for me, it means you're going to get there, but the path that you walk to get there never looks like the path you thought it was going to look like. So it's being comfortable with change, but knowing what the end result and North Star looks like. And so never giving up may be that you have to shift, but the end goal still remains the same.
Nice. 4, what is the value of collaboration?
It's critical. You can't achieve anything without collaboration and ingenuity and creativity, but that ultimately alignment, right? We could collaborate, we could disagree, but we have to align to move the ball forward. It can't be my way or the highway, or it's your way or it's this way. It's, we get in a room, we sort of ideate and collaborate around a unique idea. And regardless of disagreement, we align on a solution and a plan to move forward.
5, what do you look for in an ideal candidate?
Integrity, creativity, self-awareness, and vulnerability.
Can't beat that. 6, last one. Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
I believe that each and every one of us is um, has something we do better than anyone else in the world. And my goal is to find that something and pull it forward to allow you to be the best that you can be. So I'm searching for the magic in each person that works for me and looking for opportunities to put that magic on display, not just for their benefit, but also for the benefit of the organizations that I serve.
Wow. Now I can't drop this mic or the podcast would be bad, but this is a little mic. That's a mic drop. That was tremendous.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for bearing with me as I struggle through crazy allergies. But, look, you don't, again, time is important, and how you spend that and how you choose to use time to inspire others is really important to me. And so if this is a platform that can help do that, it's worth it, even with a little bit of allergy happening in the background. So
Meka, you were tremendous. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough.
yeah, thanks. I appreciate the time. I really do.
Thank you. And we thank Meka very much for being on the show. My number one takeaway was this: the qualities that she said she looks for when hiring somebody. Meka has done a lot of hiring, and Meka will do a lot of hiring. This was valuable wisdom. If you're an emerging leader, you want to get a promotion, or you're trying to get in an industry for the first time, here are those qualities: integrity, creativity, self awareness, and vulnerability. I'll repeat them: integrity, creativity, self awareness, and vulnerability. And you also heard throughout that discussion, we talked about critical thinking and selfless behavior. Put all that together, and Meka has shared a great blueprint for success. And we thank her very much for being on the show. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, I am your host, Chris Gargano, and we thank you each and every week for being part of Keep the Line Moving, and we'll see you next time.
We thank you for listening to Keep the Line Moving. We would love it if you subscribed or left a review. For more podcast episodes, check out our YouTube page. If you'd like to work with the Gargano Leadership Group, check out our website. This has been a GLG production, copyright 2023. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal. Have a great week, everyone.